Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest this morning, Miss Jennifer Massig. How are you, Jennifer?
I am great. It is sunny in Calgary where I am sitting right now, so it's a good start to the day.
This probably will air in a few weeks, so it could be snowing, but for right now, it's going to be about 18 degrees today. So I'm also celebrating. How long have you been in Calgary?
Well, born and raised in Alberta.
Okay, so you're familiar with the wait 5 minutes, but the last couple months, it seems to be extreme in that perspective.
Well, our joke in our household is how many winters. So last week was winter number 5. So, we usually need to have about winter number 8 before we truly get spring, but yeah.
Yes, and it has snowed during Stampede. So anyways, enough for all. Most of my audience is Alberta-based, so they're all like, yeah, I know, wait 5 minutes. We've all heard the joke. Jennifer, thanks for coming on. I was so fortunate to be introduced to you by Amber at Access Connects, as you recently were part of their Calgary, I always want to say Canadian, because I think it's such a great event. It's so big and so awesome. The Calgary Influential Women in Business Awards. And you were nominated in the category of small and medium enterprise. So we're going to talk about so much more than that, but I just want to start with a congratulations. I was in the event. Your speech was lovely. It was quite an evening. It was quite a gala, I must say.
What? Yeah, thank you so much. It was an honor to be, honestly, to win the award. But I mean, I think I talked about it in my speech. None of us winning that award, we're doing it on our own. So it was a pretty fun night.
How are you? Do you enjoy being up in front of 1,300 of your closest friends?
It's interesting. I'm extremely extroverted. So people are always surprised to hear that I'm terrified on being on stage. Put me in front of a group of people at like street level, table level, talk for hours. Even this is a lot easier for me. But talking to 1,300 people who are not responding back to my conversation, there were some claps, which was actually really helpful. But I was pretty terrified. So I'm glad it went super well.
I love that comment you made. I love a room full of people. And I need them to interact with me a little bit. I have to get some of that energy exchange, or I'm like, am I drowning up here, folks? Like, what's happening? Like, it's funny how you're all out there and there's so many humans in the room, but I'm lacking that kind of back and forth, which is a whole, we could do a podcast just on the human dynamics of energy and how we interact with each other. So I could dive into that for an hour. Talk to me a little bit about what you do in the world. You are the founder and the CEO of MAGNA Engineering Services. What's a MAGNA Engineering Services? Let's go from there and then let's unpack it a little bit.
Great. Big thing about MAGNA, it's kind of two things. So number one, it was kind of how it got started. I think you're going to hear a lot about that story today while we're chatting about it. But I was in a situation where I needed to start my own thing. I needed to have substantial flexibility because I was a single mom with 2 little girls at home. I was really good at engineering, specifically engineering related to stormwater and water. So it made sense to start an organization related to that. So the second part of that is what we actually do at MAGNA Engineering is design. The way that I like to talk about it is it's water treatment using wetlands specific to wastewater and stormwater. Okay. So I get to do the fun part of engineering. We get to use trees instead of concrete and things like that. So our vision is engineering with nature and people.
Interesting. And was that always your path? Did you evolve that to be your version of that? Or was that always, obviously worked as an engineer, then I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to really make my dream or my vision of it come alive. Or did you also have the advantage of kind of starting with that I love it, trees versus concrete. That's the tagline I'm going to take away. I like that a lot.
So my story has been an interesting journey. So I started
eclectic.
Exactly. I didn't want to be an engineer, but I was really good at math and science. And so my dad was an engineer. My grandpa was an engineer. It made sense for me to be an engineer. I was always supposed to be a lawyer. So I think my friends were very surprised that I didn't go that direction, but I don't like paperwork that much. So went into the field of engineering, always attracted to water and the planet, always been a bit of a social advocate myself. And so it made sense that that's the field of engineering that I would go into. So actually I have a minor in environmental. Got out into the work world, worked for a multinational organization for about 10 years before having my 2 little girls. And life just happened, ended up finding myself on my own. And luck would have it that I lived in a small town that was running a municipal election and allowed me to stay home while I was raising these 2 little girls. So I actually ran for politics. It was terrifying being an engineer and a politician at the same time.
Those don't always line up. If I was going to do word association games, those are not maybe the two I would pick first.
Exactly. I couldn't understand why everyone didn't just agree with me. The engineer, I read the report.
Well, that's the real engineer. Now that's Uncle George at Easter dinner, but that's another story for another day.
Actually, it was funny. And I think we might have discussed this one of the first times that we met, Tyler. But what I love about engineers is the ability to kind of, if you feel that you're right, to stand up against everyone who you feel might be wrong in the room. And it's a beautiful quality. It doesn't work in politics, right? Politics is consensus building. So it actually can't be my idea. So it was a fantastic time in my journey to learn how to put down the idea of I know that I'm right, and saying that I had to get 6 other people to believe that they were right if I actually wanted something to move forward. So the consensus building component of my journey was really good for me. Through that, and this is kind of the part of the story that's interesting for Magna, is the understanding while sitting in that position as a community leader that engineering generally isn't doing a great job historically of looking at community values when we're bringing solutions to the table. So we're bringing engineering solutions, the math is correct, the regulation is correct, but have we really paid attention to what a community actually needs? And so I started MAGNA Engineering the last year of that term in 2016-17. And it was with this idea of bringing an engineering service that worked with communities versus for communities. So that basically got started just looking to do technical liaison type work. I was going to offer my services to communities they'd hire an engineering company and I would do the translation between. Quickly took off that they were looking for an engineer that was actually willing to think outside the box and bring those types of solutions that were based on those community values. And it wasn't enough to just be a translator. And Magna just took off. And we doubled in the first couple of years. Now, we're slowing down a good 25-30% growth each year, holding on, building the wings of all the airplanes
holding
in the
on
air.
by your fingernails, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. So when you ask me the question around whether that vision today was how I started, it kind of just kept falling into my lap. I cared about water, which is why I was in the water industry. I cared about community, which is how I got into politics. And then bringing those two things together about the importance of treating water and taking care of the environment in our communities led to the start of MAGNA Engineering. And then as MAGNA Engineering Services took off, you started to see where nature-based solutions that were lowering capital costs and offering long-term sustainability really met both worlds of meeting engineering requirements, but then also building a beautiful amenity for these communities that was more in line with the values, maybe what they actually, more than what they needed, it was actually what they wanted.
Well, it's nice to have. So talk to me a little bit. You said, well, the science is right. The policy is right. We have that. That's accurate. The engineer in me can check that. I can literally put a stamp on that. As not only just an engineer, but as a leader, what were those specific skills? Like you said, consensus building, but just as your own human journey, what were the skills that all of a sudden were like, okay, I've got the science, I've got the policy, I can put my stamp on it. Oh yeah. Shit, don't forget, I have to touch on the value side for the community. What kind of personal journey was that? Was that just part of being in politics, or did you have a checklist of like, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to get really good at X, Y, and Z, as well as the science?
I was really pulled. One of the things as a profession that I think scares a lot of engineers is this liability side of it, right? We were always told
risk.
going through.
How do we mitigate the risk?
Exactly. Doctors kill one person at a time, but if an engineer makes a mistake and a building falls down, we can kill thousands, right? Thank you.
I've never heard it said that. I've never said that. That has some weight behind it.
It does, right? So as engineers are walking through the world, carrying this amount of liability, it can be a really tough position to say, how do I look at it from alternative perspectives? And how am I okay with a shared risk type of model? And that's that consensus building idea is number one, you have to hear what everyone else needs. It's the win-win-win scenario. And when communities generally care about something, they're actually willing to share some of that liability and a risk with the engineer. And I think that's something that engineers don't realize. And so having to listen more, listen first versus talk first, which is what you're supposed to do in politics, not always it works out.
Heaven forbid, be curious before you rush in with the answer.
Exactly. And, be curious is one of our big values at MAGNA.
I love it. I can get behind that all day long. I thought the more curious I am, the better my life is.
Exactly. And honestly, the better outcome of anything, right? I mean, I've got 2 teenage daughters at home. Curiosity is the only way that we make it, right?
That's a survival mechanism beyond a force multiplier.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason that we get through that is I'm watching someone have a breakdown at my kitchen table, and instead of being like, well, I'm just like, okay, what is going on? Where did this start? And often,
which sounds a lot like a council meeting setting could happen if around a big project for a municipality. Could sound like a very similar breakdown kind of environment could happen.
Exactly,
a tantrum, if you will.
Yes, and one of the big things
because I care so much.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's interesting that you say that, because I think that care comes through, right, when we actually listen first. And when someone actually thinks you care about them, you think you have a community that you care about, they're actually a lot more willing to listen to the idea that what you're doing might meet their needs, their wants, right?
That journey flows both ways.
Exactly, right? So one of the things I remember years ago, we were looking at how to bring innovation generally to the world, or how to get buy-in, how to get to that minimum viable product. And the big question was falling in love with the problem versus the solution. So a big part of that is when you're coming into a community, engineers can be like, okay, this is the solution that we've done for the last 50 or even 100 years civil engineering. We're still designing the same pipe we designed 100 years ago. It's hilarious. So if we're coming to the table with that stance, we're not really thinking about what is the problem I'm trying to solve. We've already approached it with the solution. So coming at it with the ask, the curiosity about the problem, I really feel like that's where communities start to shine. And you get talking to an operator, they'll go on for an hour about all the important things that they would have done if it was their design. And that is gold when trying to figure out what is the right solution that's unique to the community. Basically the unique solution that matches the unique community that you're working in.
So if I think about showing up with a solution, is there a time or is there a cycle in the career of, we're just going to pick on engineers because that's who we're talking about today, that in the early days, I've learned a lot of textbook and I've been told this is what the solutions are. Kind of mid-career, maybe a gray area versus I've been doing this for 30 years. Yeah. I get that your problem is unique, but I've already seen the answer. Yeah. Or is it just our own stuff that we bring as humans to our engineering degree? Not to blame engineering for any of this.
Well, you know what? It kind of circles back to that discussion around the weight of what the profession expects from us as engineers.
Okay.
So it is a lot easier when you're coming with a solution that you're like, well, but the other engineers who are a lot older and maybe a lot smarter than I have, this is what they did.
It's safer. It's safer.
Exactly. So it can be really terrifying to be taking on something that's as important as this and saying, I think I'd like to try something new. And, you're expecting the first person to go, well, no one else has asked that question before. Why are you asking it? And it's like, maybe no one was curious before. And we need to be called to that curiosity. I think that that's probably something as slight as that. But if you don't have the consensus building to go with it, you are opening up yourself to a lot of liability because you are trying something that is maybe different than what's been done for the last 100 years. So the two have to kind of go hand in hand.
I just listened to Peter Attia's Outlive talking about, medicine 1.0 versus 2.0. I'm really glad people went against the grain and we stopped drilling holes in people's heads and bloodletting. Yes. But those people were ostracized, those individuals, for saying there's a better way. Mm-hmm. It's heresy. The institution will protect itself for the sake of itself. There's such a fine balance there because intended to protect the public or the whoever's at the receiving end of the service. But where does that stop or hinder innovation while also being safe? It is a very delicate balance that you're right. Without curiosity, we'll never find the answer.
Well, and the scary thing is, Tyler, think about without failure, we'll never find the answer. Tell an engineer that this might fail. And then having a client
as you stand beside a bridge or a dam or a water treatment facility that you just built, that if it fails, multiple people's lives could be negatively impacted.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So when we come,
that's a tricky balance. I feel the tension.
It absolutely is. And so the requirement to have the community or the client or the customer be part of the decision process, part of the shared risk
the only way it
process,
works.
that the only way. Mm-hmm.
What an amazing segue. We could keep going at this whole day, but I find the world of work also has these same standards and criterias of like, if you're not 40 hours a week, you're not really doing, well, forget 40. This is billable. You're working 70. What? You're not in the office by 8 a.m. Are you really? I'm taking on this old white guy persona that I'm using right now, which is unfair. Yep. But those are rules that I know you've gone against as well. So share a little bit about the workplace that you've created that also has a lot of, well, this is the only way we can do it, rules in there that clearly have been blown up like to the nth degree in the last 3-4 years specifically.
Yeah, a big part of, like I mentioned to you, my starting story. There was a necessity for how MAGNA started because I needed to drop kids off at school, pick up, be there for drop off time, be there for pick off time. I think the line that I had talked about in my speech is I needed to be able to do field trips and, doctor's appointments, everything else in between. But the reality is it's just life happens. And I think that generationally, we've kind of started to understand that we want work to be purposeful. We want it to be part of our life. I'm going to pause because it's telling me my internet is a problem. Is that on your side?
I see that. I'm getting the same thing too. So it must be some gremlins. We can keep going because it should be still recording the audio. So there it goes. Okay. Every once in a while, as we all know, if technology ever took a 15-minute holiday all at the same time, we'd be hooped.
Exactly. So continuing with that, basically from that discussion about how I got into it, the same thing is true when you start reading, or you know what? Actually, I'll back up. Business books these days are actually really impressive. And what I will say by that is I probably consume more business books these days than fiction, which I don't know if that's always so good for me.
I think it goes through phases. I have my nonfiction phase, then I get into a fiction phase, then I fall back, and then earlier in my career it was all nonfiction, and I was missing out. So I'm glad. I think it can be a balance.
Right, exactly. But you're starting to see a lot of this discussion around generationally, people want to love what they do.
They want a different playbook.
Exactly. And one of the discussions I think that comes up for me a lot about why we're doing what we're doing and how does it work is, people just need to get their job done. And I'm always like, I'm a pretty capable person. I'm pretty good at getting my job done. I think that's how I got here. And I can do that while still respecting the needs of my family and my life and finding that self-care time. And maybe it's okay when we're trying something new, as long as I'm respecting those things, kind of coming back to that discussion around falling in love with the problem, not the solution, right? So what has historically been the problem with the work environment? Is it that, we weren't inspired to get our job done? And it's hard to be inspired when we feel like we're taking a big sacrifice from our life, from our own health and things like that. So the problem was not that people don't want to do a good job. I think everybody wants to do a good job. Everyone's actually probably trying their hardest every day. But if we're not creating an environment where they can be their most productive because we're not requiring them to sacrifice all the other things that make them kind of like a powerful, high energy human, maybe that's the problem. So when we start looking at, it's not about working 40 hours or how many hours a week we need to do for a company to pound out these deliverables. It's more around the idea is maybe we need a couple less deliverables, or we need a deliverable that's a little more refined, or is involved working directly with the client a bit more than just a standard, okay, I'll be back in 6 weeks, more of that win-win. Suggesting that, do you actually need something that's got 25 drawing sheets in it? Could it be 12? Like if it's good enough and we can all understand it, can I put in a little less, into the deliverable, but I'll spend more time engaging with you, ensuring that deliverable is exactly what you need. And as a worker, even as me kind of delivering on that deliverable, I'm way more engaged. I feel like I'm delivering something that's exactly what the customer wants from me, but I've had to be really upfront with them is I'd like to put in all this extra effort, but on the back end, do you actually need as much effort from me day to day? Can I do this in less hours? Basically is what I'm asking. Same outcome, less hours, more productive. So in our office, we talk about 100% of pay for 90% time for 100% productivity. And so we're doing the same thing for 10% less effort. And our goal is to get it down to 20% less effort. So we've already shrunk it to the 4-day work week because we do believe people need a 3-day weekend. If you don't have Friday to catch up on all the things that have caught up through the week, it is hard to take a true Saturday and Sunday. So to get truly productive on Monday morning, our belief is in that 3-day weekend. So we got down to 4 days. We haven't got fully down to 32 of 40. We're at 36 of 40 right now. But again, 9 to 3 are office hours because we do need some collaboration time. You were asking me, Tyler, about the type of work we do with engineering. Mm-hmm. Innovation and engineering, when you're dealing with the amount of kind of risk sharing, really has to be done eye to eye. Like when you're asking questions and discussions and doing design charrettes, we call them, get in a room.
It's not an email.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be all of our day. And actually, I kind of want to restrict it. I want to say that a portion of your day is this, and the rest of the day is yours to sit and actually work on the design, get get that to-do list done. So we kind of balance it between this 24 hours a week of the 36 is in office together. Senior leadership is available for the junior staff, which is a big part of it. And then the rest of that time is whatever's most productive to you. Is it working at home? Is it working late hours at the office or coming in early? Or is it working at the coffee shop down the street or sitting in your backyard? To each their own.
which I appreciate. And from the nuts and bolts of running the business, has there been a sacrifice from a profitability perspective? Like if we were just going to put on our we were beating up on engineers. Not we weren't. We were talking about engineers. Let's give the accountants a run. We'll give them a turn. If I put my accountant hat on, my CFO hat, and I look at this and go, "Oh my goodness, look at the sacrifice. Look at the less financial impact." Walk that through for me in terms of how that's played out. And has it been a journey as well?
It definitely been a journey. One of the things that I noticed within 6 months of doing it is lower revenues. And, associated with the idea that I was not only limiting the days in the week, limiting the number of hours, I was also requiring my staff to take advantage of it.
Which is a key asterisk to put on that. Like you can put it in place, but then when you enforce it, that's a different journey, right? I've been at no meeting Fridays when everyone just pretended they weren't booking meetings and booked them anyways. So there's a difference between that policy and then actually enforcing it.
You nailed it. So right away, we did see a decrease in revenue. Now, as a business owner, revenue is not the magic. It's profitability. So profitability actually increased. So what I was seeing is more efficiency and productivity, but lower revenues. So the great news about that is revenues increased by adding more and more of my staff. So if we needed to build the business and build more revenue into it, all we really needed to do was expand the size of our organization, because what we had done is checked what I felt was the right box, which was increasing efficiency and productivity.
Well, because now you're scaling a more efficient model because you took the time to make it efficient, understood which metrics matter and what you actually were trying to deliver on. Then as you scaled it, you didn't get that weird seesaw thing that sometimes happens. You grow and crush your profitability, which is we've all been on that journey before, which is very discouraging. We're working twice as hard for half as much. Right on. Like nobody wants that.
Exactly. And I will disclaimer, and you asked me the question, has it been a journey? Absolutely, it has. And it is probably like every other work environment, looming deadlines and, schedules that get adjusted so that all of a sudden all the deliverables end up on the same month that they were never supposed to be in.
Deadlines don't move around, do they, Jennifer? What are you talking about? Clients don't always not follow the work back schedule. Because they also are living in a state of chaos and hectic in life as well. Like, let's be honest, sometimes you do have to have empathy that everyone is as busy as you are. So I always try to keep that mindset.
Exactly. So do we have to remind ourselves a lot of the reason that we have this in place? We're in one right now. I'm talking
you're
right
in the
now.
Pressure cooker right now?
Yeah. In Calgary, seasonality is a big deal. So the late spring now, we're pushing for construction. And deadlines that got pushed all need to be out by the end of April. And it's this moment
Nothing like some nice weather to get everybody motivated in the construction space, eh?
Well, exactly, right?
Yeah.
That's, maybe we're not so sad about winter in the end of August because it tends to slow down that a little bit.
Gives you a breather to catch your breath.
Yeah, exactly.
And have talking about, well, you talked about with less effort, but you didn't change your output. So I'm also thinking about the client in this journey, like, oh, we've done something like this before, but it sounds like you're changing the whole playbook. We're collaborating more. We're working on new solutions. I can't hold up like, well, we did this project 5 years ago and it was done in X amount of weeks for X amount of money. You're rewriting it, which I think is so critical to not getting stuck in those conversations. Like, well, this is not anything like last time. So we don't even have to have that conversation.
Well, and I'll add to that I find that once we get making these changes, whether it's a regulatory model or with the client model, that everyone's human. Everyone wants to do a good job, right? So you've got a regulator maybe that said no to innovation for a long time, but then you sit in front of them and you're like, can I ask you a question? Was this your intention originally when you wrote this requirement? And they sit back and they're like, it wasn't. We were trying to save the world. And I was like, do you know that now it's doing the opposite? And they're like, I
reserve the right to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe what I thought I knew 2 years ago is no longer accurate, or 2 minutes ago sometimes.
Exactly. And so a lot of times when we're talking to these communities or regulators that we're trying to change, we'll upfront with, listen, I don't actually want to ask for a variance. I don't want to ask to slide under the radar. I want to talk about this head on. Let's both talk about the idea that we're here to intentionally deliver something great that we think will be better long term. And you're here because you've set regulations to protect communities because you also want them to get something great that'll be good for them in the long term. We seem to have some regulations that aren't working for both of us to get there. Can we talk about it?
Well, you make the regulation the villain, not the other individual on the other side of the table. That's a very healthy way to debate of like, let's talk about the thing and move it over here so we can both talk about it, not me against you.
Exactly.
That tends to be very ineffective.
Totally. And bring a client to the table. More often than not, I've had to say, I know you really want this one project to slide under the line. I need to tell you we can't because you're probably going to be in this business for the long term. So if we ask for this now, this small variance, it'll affect every time we ask for anything for the next 10 years. And so it's even bringing them along. So I've got these three, especially in engineering, we always have a client, an engineer, and a regulator. And then down the line, you get contractors and everyone else in that mix. For all three of them to find the win, they all need to believe that we're all doing something that's good long term.
Makes sense. How much time, energy, training, skills, helping your team be better and more effective communicators? Because again, the myth of communication is that it happened. Oftentimes in technically oriented professions, in my very limited experience, how to be an effective communicator wasn't a course that was part of the mandatory curriculum. But listening to you talk, I'm like, this is the story of an effective communicator who has spent time and probably learned the hard way on how to move consensus down the line. How do you teach that with your team that maybe didn't come in with that skill set or that certificate on their wall?
Well, okay, I can give you a short answer and a long answer.
Whatever you prefer.
Well, I'll start with the short one and we'll get out of the way and then I'll talk about the long one. The short one.
Spoken like a true consensus builder right there.
There you go. The short answer is our value and be curious. And it's nothing like talking to teenagers too, they're trying to get a point across and I'm like, can you tell me why? And there's this like, do I have to?
The big sigh.
But it works for all of us, right? And sometimes we just need to be, if I'm emotional or whatever about something, I'm really trying to get my point across. And someone goes, can you help me understand why? It takes all of the emotion out of it. It's like, okay, actually, I know we might be disagreeing, but I do feel like you actually want to understand what I'm trying to say here. So that be curious is the short answer. We do it a lot. The long answer, which I alluded to a little bit, was we're all very different people. And so at Magna, every year, sometimes twice a year, we actually do all different types of personality type assessment.
Oh, fantastic.
work.
Okay, I love it. Yep.
So right now, we're kind of in the middle of an Enneagram one. We've done DISC. We've done a little bit of the Strengths Finder. We've done actually a little personality poker. If you haven't tried it, super great.
I have not. Well, you got the name. You already have my attention.
Exactly. So with the Enneagram one, the one that we've liked about it recently is it's motivation based. And when you've got two people with different Enneagram numbers that are completely motivated differently, it can be really, you actually might be talking about the same thing. You're just not understanding each other's language. I myself am someone that even in the DISC it's a big circle. I don't know if you've done it before, Tyler.
I have done disc, absolutely. Many years ago, and just recently in my tech group, we did it.
Yeah. And one of the ways to best explain it, I think, is you've got this dinner plate and everyone sits somewhere on the dinner plate. Some of us who have very extreme personalities are almost off the edge of the plate. And the way that I had that explained to me is the farther you are out, the harder it is to understand the language inside the middle of the plate. It was really nice for me to learn that about myself, that when I'm talking to a team or sharing something with a client, it might be me that's having a hard time really understanding them because I have this really fairly extreme outlook on things. And so I have to be really curious. And then I've got other people that maybe I felt like they aren't as committed to their idea. Well, they sit in the middle of the plate. So they're taking into everyone's perspectives all the time. They're actually really gifted at being able to see all those other personalities. So it's really nice when I'm talking to someone to understand that we're both talking about two different things. I might seem really passionate, and my previous version might be they seem impassionate. That's not true. They're consensus building, and I'm maybe not, because it's a little harder for me being on the outside. So that's a long answer to how we teach that communication is maybe a better understanding
ongoing, consistently, and from many perspectives.
Exactly.
It reminded me of something when I was early days of my marriage. I've been married 20 years to the most awesome woman in the world. But in the beginning, I'd be like, "Is there what's wrong? What's wrong?" She's like, "Tyler, just because I'm not acting like you doesn't mean something's wrong." I'm like, "Oh, such a powerful lesson in there." The cornerstones of building a long-term relationship. Oh, okay. So we're different then. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But I just read, I don't know if you've read it, The 6 Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni.
No, but I feel like I want to.
It's very interesting. Similar to like, oh, I'm a galvanizer, I'm an enabler. And they do it based on a little ad agency, which was kind of fun, selfishly, being that I work in that space. But I don't know if you've read any Lencioni. I think most of us have. It's done as a narrative. It's so easy to listen to. It's a quick, maybe I think I listened to it. It's a 4-hour listen, but throw it on your nonfiction list. But still, it's told as a fiction-based story, which is part of Lencioni's teaching style. I remember the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That was a pinnacle moment for me many years in my leadership journey. Like, oh, if you don't have trust, the whole pyramid falls over. I understand now.
Well, and you asked earlier about the life journey. I mean, it's the same thing when we look at relationships, right? Are we sitting in I think it's the drama triangle, right?
Yes.
Or,
yes. I read that one recently as well. That was recommended by a leadership coach here in town, Jen Lofgren, I think.
Yeah. Oh, we love Jen. So Jen actually came out and did Dare to Lead.
Oh, she's a rock star. Yeah, I love her.
Yes.
I met her a few months back on the show, and she walked through the whole drama triangle and the 5 leadership dysfunctions and kind of broke it all down for me. It was great. She's a powerhouse of a human.
Yeah, actually, a side note, fun story about thinking outside the box. During COVID, I really wanted my team to be together as much as possible. And we happened to have a big deck on our office. That was talk about dumb luck, stumbling upon an office with a back deck during the pandemic.
Which is perfect. We can all be outside. We can be this far apart, but we can still be together.
Exactly. So we actually we were 18 of us at the time. And Jen came out in June. This was Charlie, it was the heat dome June. It was pretty hot out here. And everyone had sunscreen and a little tiny, almost like a grade 1 desk spread out across this deck. Jen was underneath a pergola. We had a TV rolled out there. And she did a 3-day Dare to Lead leadership.
Oh, amazing.
Training
awesome.
for us.
That's it's such a small, again, we talked it took us only 20 minutes to run into we know so-and-so.
Of course.
But it's so important as a leader. What I really take away from this like being human. It's a constant journey of, okay, I learned that's going to help me move. And what am I going to expose myself next? And sometimes you don't know what you're going to get out of it, but exposing yourself to those different perspectives, those different ideas, and amazing. And I'm sure you've experienced it. It's like, oh, it's all of a sudden like they're talking into an issue that you happen to have right now, because it's just time for that thing to see the light of day and get a fresh set of eyes on it.
Well, and this kind of comes back to the CIWB award around diversity. And I remember a long time ago, I think it was Barack Obama made the comment that we will know we hit diversity when we understand that we can't have successful businesses without it. And this is the conversation we're talking about, is that the multi-perspective idea.
Yes.
And we look at MAGNA being over 50% women. And I think that the line that I had said is, we've always been diverse, because when I was 1, I was 100% women. when I was 2. I was still 100% women. And I think it was like, when I was 4, I was 75% women. And then we've kind of balanced out at about just over 50% now. But the value of that diverse perspective has been a big part of Magna's journey and our success. 100% it's to that diversity. And it's not just the women around. You got to go to our website, which is magnaengineering.ca.
Nice. Excellent plug. I have it up here. We absolutely. Engineering with nature and people.
Yes. And you see our entire staff is really, really quite diverse, even just from our profile images, right? And it comes back to that idea. We've had this, entire podcast talking about getting to know your client, getting to know the regulator, all these different perspectives, get you to the best solution, allows us to get to innovative thinking. The same is true when you have a diverse group of people around a table, even if they're all engineers.
I love how you say that, even if they're all engineers. When you were on your journey of growing your business, and I apologize if the question comes off weird, how deliberate was it? Like, oh, we're at 3 people and we're 100% women. Oh, we need to add a male to the team just to change perspective. We need to add someone different. I don't want to make it just about gender. Or was it, oh no, this is the right candidate and it fits. How is that matrix for you as a leader growing your business versus like, this is the way we did it because this is the way we saw the world versus no, we still had this as part of our mandate. Just trying to understand that balance for anyone listening who's like, okay, I want to make it different, but I'm not sure how to approach one without maybe falling into another trap while I do it.
Well, I think the most important thing to understand about, if I put diversity in quotes, is the discussion around what environment are we looking to attain by having that diversity? And one of the things I always talk about is, we talk about you meet someone who's an A-type personality. Oh, they're a risk taker. They know how to hit that profitability line. They know how to do all these things that seem like a more of a, what we would call a male energy kind of power center. Yeah. Whereas I'll be honest, when I talk about people being accountable to their work every day here at Magna, those aren't the drivers. Those are the outcomes. The drivers are being able to be yourself at work, which means sometimes bringing your emotions to the table. It means the person sitting next to you is okay with hearing and understanding what's going on in your personal life because maybe today's not the day to give them a big deadline or drop something on them or know them well enough to be able to reach over and go, can I help you out today? Those are the things to me that really build accountability. Those are the things that make room for curiosity. So when we look at diversity, it also means a diversity of the things that we value. So if you are in an organization that you don't feel safe to share your emotions at work, that you don't feel safe to slow a project down because you need to invite everybody to the table to make relationship-based decisions, you're not built for diversity and you're probably not built for success. So we don't try to hit metrics, but we know who we want to be as a long-term organization. And I think we tend to attract a diverse audience. Yes, probably we end up attracting a lot of minorities and women to the table because they have felt they haven't been free to bring those values in maybe more traditional engineering environments. So it's been a pretty easy journey for me. And I haven't had to come from the other side of being in one of those traditional engineering spaces and had to figure out how to get there. But if you asked me right now, the first thing I'd ask you to do is what values do you hold inside the office that are getting in the way of you attracting a diverse staff? And that's probably the best advice.
How much has it been a superpower of you from a recruiting and a differentiation and like wearing your values on your sleeve like that for individuals that potentially come from other firms where they're like, oh my God, this is refreshing. Like, please be this company. Please be this because I don't want the other version. I can only imagine it's been an advantage for you. Like back to the KPIs of like, it's obviously got to be a benefit for recruiting and building your team.
One personality trait that I think has served me really well, and my spouse likes to tell this to me all the time, is I really dislike people making decisions for me. I would like to have all the information and be given the opportunity to make a decision. The benefit of that personality trait is I like to give it to others, right? I don't want to make the decision for you. So I invite you, but it can be really accountable for someone to say, well, I don't want to make this decision for you. You make it. And so it has been something that has really helped in that journey, especially with the MAGNA journey, where it's a little bit different, a little bit outside the box, is I'm constantly not wanting to make the decision for somebody else, whether that's my client, whether that's the regulator, whether that's the staff member here. If I feel like they're in the, they're the right person in the wrong seat, I'll really have to spend the time for them to make the decision to get into the right seat versus me moving them there. And that can be somewhat counter to when we talk about, you got to get people in the right seat. I'm like, it's true, but they need to want to sit in it. I can't strap them in and hope for the best. So I think that that's probably been a big part in trying to teach that language about being curious about others and trying not to assume that we know what they want and actually asking it.
I just love the level of self-awareness and you sharing that, we've done this profile, the DISC, and I'm sure Myers-Briggs or pick the list. How critical is that for leaders to forget the framework or forget the model, but just self-awareness at its most basic level? It feels like table stakes to me, but it doesn't always get talked about. We'll give you a new framework on how to run a meeting. Well, actually, how about being aware of where you are maybe getting in the way of your own success in the meeting, just even as a leader, forget about even the other individuals around the table. I think it's so critical. And I still think sometimes it gets fluffed aside in organizations, but that's my own bias there.
Well, Tyler, this comes back to the discussion around diversity, because I asked the question, how many times have you cried in front of your staff? I have cried in front of my staff. They know.
I'm like, wait, was that a real question? Do you want me to answer? No, anyways.
Do you want to answer it?
No, I will say it's zero. I've had many people cry in my office, and that's maybe, I don't know. Okay. I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session, but thank you for asking.
Well, but the reality is that in order to really have that level of self-awareness, we need to be okay with being our true selves. And that means there are days when I come into this office and okay, you got to keep your shit together. I'm not suggesting that,
thank you
right?
We got to put some, I appreciate it, but thank you for adding a little bit of context to it.
Yeah. There are days that I'll come in. We have a check-in. We used to do it every day during COVID. We're down to a Tuesday morning half hour where we cannot talk about work. We just talk. And you are free to pass also. You're free to just listen to everyone's,
I appreciate that you don't force it, because that can really backfire.
Exactly. And it was interesting because in busy times, every once in a while, we'd have this pushback around, do we really need check-in anymore? And I remember last summer, we took it out or made it not mandatory. And for about 4 weeks, only half the team came. And really quickly, I started getting fired all these anonymous messages. Please bring check-in back. Please bring check-in back. And it was discussion. I compare it to healthcare. You don't need healthcare until you need it.
And then
and every once in a while, there's that check-in where you're looking at all your staff, all your colleagues, and you need to tell them, I'm having a really hard time. So if I don't seem like I'm doing, being my most productive self this week, it's because I've had a loss. Something's going on, in my family or whatever. And you just need that. And you're not reporting it to all your, coming in at 9:00 and having to yell it over the cubicles. You're like, Tuesday morning check-in, I'm just going to let people know, I had a hard weekend. Turns out I was at my grandparents' funeral and someone's like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm okay, but thank you for asking. And it's just not a conversation that would come up if you just didn't have this room at least once a week to be able to say something. And the number of times that we've had a staff member that would never say anything to the group, just share in a 5-minute anecdote about something that happened on the weekend, and it completely changes the relationships in the office is fantastic. So I have to do that. So there are times in those check-ins that I've been the one who's come to tears over something that's going on in my life, or I'm carrying around a little bit of animosity. And I'm like, please don't talk to me today. Today's the day that I'm really grumpy.
The spring is coiled extra tight. Which is ultimately leading by example to demonstrate. The best way to create psychological safety is just be it, live it, and show it. And because if you're not demonstrating it, we all show exactly what our cultures are like, intentionally or otherwise.
Exactly. So
it's not the words you put on the wall. I joked that I was doing a workshop recently for a keynote on using curiosity as a catalyst from fixed or growth mindset. And we talked about, okay, let's talk about fixed mindset at work and your coworkers, and the reality of I can just go sit at the back of one of your meetings and I can pretty much tell you what your culture is. I don't have to read it on your website before I go in. Like the old days where the teacher used to sit back in the room and you were in elementary school and you're like, what are they doing back there? And they're observing. You could sit and you wouldn't take long, I think, in most organizations in a meeting, especially if there's senior people in the room, to find out exactly what the culture was like. like there or not, or otherwise.
Well, even just little things where I moved the organization out of the small town Chestermere that I started it in because kind of coming back to the start.
You're in Calgary now, right?
Yes, I am in Calgary in the neighborhood of Inglewood. It's a beautiful location. And I needed us to be in a place that was beautiful. And I feel like if I'm going to attract staff that care about making beautiful things for communities and are thinking outside the box. So you can see, actually, I've got a moss on the wall.
I like your moss wall.
So we do this biophilic design. You know, it's mostly windows, natural light, lots of plants. We're upstairs from a coffee shop. Like, it just had to be a space that people wanted to come to. Because if I needed this hybrid environment, if I needed this kind of diverse staff, I needed everything to be supportive of that kind of passion driven. People
it needed to align, right? Brand isn't what you say, it's what the experience people have when they engage with you. And there are so many ways to unpack that. So, don't tell me this is an old Margaret Thatcher quote. Being a leader is like being a lady. If you have to tell them you are, you aren't. It's kind of like, just be the thing. I know that Margaret Thatcher is a whole other character into herself. And that stuck with me because I think, don't tell me you're cool, just be cool. Don't tell me you're friendly, just be friendly. If you have to tell me, well, I'm probably going to be suspicious.
That's why I usually, most of my interviews start in the coffee shop downstairs. And they end with a walk through the office. And I need them to see, like, yes, we are a hybrid model. I do expect you to be here for part of the day, but this is where you work. These are all the people you get to work with. And right away, they're like, oh, actually, I would look forward to coming here. I'm like, great. That was the point.
Well, being unabashedly upfront about this is who we are. And if that works for you, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Like, there's to be loved, you have to be willing to be right for some and wrong for others. And that's okay. This vanilla, everybody will kind of like it. That's not how you build a powerful culture. Mm-hmm. It's just not that fun either. It's not my personality. I don't think it sounds like it's yours either, Jen.
Well, and because we're all so different. And one of the things, like, we do have a lot of turnover. We always have. And I always say, well, that's because we are really sticky with our values. And I don't mean that even like we're pushing people out. I mean, sometimes I have people that I work with that I adore, that I still spend a lot of time mentoring, that have just decided that MAGNA wasn't for them. This innovative, I mean, we're in engineering and we're doing innovation. There's a lot of that liability and risk and stuff. And if you're not that type of engineer, this may not be the place for you. And actually, I will write you a reference letter and I'd like you to work with our collaborators or maybe one of our regulators. Who knows, one day what we're doing, we're trying to do something different. You just need to be in a different spot in the journey. So that's one of the things I know I get asked sometimes, like, I feel like you have a lot of people that come and go. And I'm like, That's because our culture is very specific and people will come in and check it out. And I tell everyone their first 90-day probation period is for both of us. It's for me to get to know them.
It should be a mutually agreed upon relationship.
Exactly. For them to get to know us too. Yeah.
Well, and I love, what you're not doing clearly is making them wrong, making something, about them. Just like, hey, this is who we are. For some people, it's a great fit. Some people, it's a stop on the journey. Dot. Yeah. all of the things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Curious. Something I've been exploring a little bit with guests is this Alberta. This thing we call Alberta, where I believe there's just a level of collaboration. There's so many things that I'm from somewhere else, like so many people that live here now. And I'm curious with your perspective and whether you agree that, yeah, you know what, Alberta does have something going for it. If one, it's a two-part question. If you agree, where do you think that comes from? And if you don't agree, well, then that's cool too. Let's talk about that. But exploring, it's easy. Oh yeah, Alberta's great. Okay, what does that even mean? And one, where's it coming from? And if it is great, how do we make it even better?
Being Alberta born, I feel like I'm qualified to answer this question.
Okay, excellent. Every once in a while I get an original edition or original model. I have family that was born here that actually lives on the coast in BC on Vancouver Island. And we talk about this a lot. And the one thing I say about Albertans, which I think is true to our core, is this spirit of hospitality. Right? In Calgary here, we talk about the white hat and this, this whole idea of we want to be roll out the red carpet for when guests come to town or for when our friends and family are coming together. And I think that spirit of hospitality, whether it's that, agriculture base that we all come from, whether it's this idea that we do have beautiful natural spaces and there's a real respect for what Alberta is like in the world. It's one of the most beautiful places to be.
So I'm not sure where all of it kind of base comes from, but it is something that I feel is really apparent through all of us. One of the things I remember a couple of years ago, I was, it should be 20 years ago now, I was traveling and everyone's like, oh, you don't say a, you say hey. And I'm like, it's an Alberta thing. Albertans tend to say hey versus a. And I thought even that alone is a bit of this like, hey, like it's this hospitable invite to a conversation. And it's something that's just make a little change in who we are as Canadian. One of the things during I think it was the Fort McMurray fires, I was a municipal leader in 2013 for Calgary. So I understood community help. So my daughters and I did a lot on that. 2015, Chestermere had its own flood, did that again. And then we had the Fort McMurray fires. And I know there's a lot of kind of vitriol around, oh yeah, that's where the tar sands. There's all of this online banter discussion around, climate change is affecting. And it was so heartbreaking because I remember, I think it was, it was one of our national leaders was talking about, it was who are we to pick on Alberta? Who are going to be the first people to open the doors when tragedy happens? The most hospitable province that you will find. The entire province coming together to support their communities. They would go anywhere to support anyone else. And when we see them in their moments, we're the ones that are saying, see, Alberta, you deserved it. And I remember thinking deep in my heart that I was like, dang it, the message isn't getting out. We know it internally. We understand what hospitality looks like. But it's a trait that I wish that we maybe shared more across Canada and the world, but it's something that I think is really, really deeply true to Albertans. And it's that kind of like barn building attitude.
I love that. You might not even like your neighbor, but you're going to help them out if they need it. I grew up in a small town in rural Quebec, and the coffee shop, everyone talked about everybody, but if someone had, especially a disaster or their barn burned down as an example, everybody would be there to help. It was a non-negotiable because that's how you survive and thrive in a small community, especially rural. And I do believe our roots are not that. The roots are shallow when it comes to that, but then deep at the same time.
Yes. So that whole discussion about hospitality, I mean, that strings right back to that relationship building side of it, right? Wanting to approach problems from a relationship perspective of like inviting clients, and that invite to the project, I think is really from a state of hospitality. And I think it's something that Albertans tend to generally share.
I like it. Invite them to participate. Jennifer, it was so lovely chatting with you. And our pre-chat was great. I loved your speech at the event. So to be able to sit down and just have an unfiltered 1 hour, good old fashioned conversation with another human being, it's the highlight of my day. If someone wants to connect with you, there's a million ways, but what's your preference? Do you like LinkedIn? Do you like email? Do you like smoke signals, carrier pigeons? What's your preferred?
Well, I'll expand on this a little bit. LinkedIn is by far my preference. And you were asking me earlier about recruiting and different things like that. And it is one of the things I tell young professionals, if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to get on it right away.
Get after it. Yeah.
So the two pieces of advice I always give are LinkedIn and a cover letter. That's a whole other podcast discussion.
Okay. Probably. How to write an effective a cover letter by Jennifer.
Exactly. But LinkedIn is by far the best way to get hold of me.
Okay, amazing. It's the one social media platform that doesn't feel like it's kind of jumped into another realm of like, what am I doing with my life being on this platform right now?
Yes.
That's another story. And obviously check out your website. Are you guys recruiting right now? Do you have some open positions?
100% we are.
Okay,
yes.
Amazing.
And really, when we talk about what we're looking for, because of the innovation space, it is a lot more based on skill set and passion around water and engineering than it is even finding 10, 15 years of experience. Because when you're on the leading edge of engineering, especially in civil, there's actually none of the things that we are doing now has been done before.
It's hard to get 10 years of experience for something this new.
Exactly. So we spend a lot of time training for those different kinds of things. So we're really just looking for people who are impassioned for water treatment, using nature-based solutions, and just trying to think outside the box in civil engineering.
That sounds... I'm not in your field, but that sounds very appealing. My personality traits and my disc profile would lean to like, that sounds great. We're going to do something different and you're going to teach me. I'm in.
All those things. Yeah.
Jennifer, thanks for taking the time today. Thanks for just the work you do and the role you play in our community. And I appreciate you just having a good old fashioned conversation with me.
Oh, thank you so much for the invite, Tyler. I really enjoyed it.